Good afternoon. My name is Professor Alistair Sinclair Smythe. By the year 3000, Earth has been conquered by an alien race known as the Cyclos, who overcame Earth's defenses by using gas drones, automated ships that gassed the entire population. Apparently, all of Earth's defenses had only been able to hold off the invaders for 9 minutes. During this time, the aliens, who do not breathe the same gas as we do, but something which is greatly reactive in response to radiation, have covered the city of Denver and set up a mining operation searching for the most valuable mineral in the universe, gold. However, the head of security, Turl, is discouraged with this relatively simple and easy job, and would much prefer to be out conquering in the name of the Cyclo Empire. But a bit of foolishness with a senator's daughter has condemned him to be restricted to this posting, and he's not happy about it. He therefore decides to mine gold and steal most of it by exploiting the local population, the man-animals, whom the Cyclos regard as being rather primitive given they were unable to resist their invasion. He educates Johnny Goodbye Tyler, a man who had been somewhat aggressive upon being captured, fearing he would be a good slave, and even goes so far as to educate him in the Cyclo language and the use of their technology in order that he might lead other humans to perform the mining for them. There's supposed to be a major miscalculation on Turl's part, who has proven himself to be not particularly bright, as most of the other Cyclos aren't, and they ultimately lead a revolt against the Cyclos, and in the process destroy their home planet, with Turl as one of the few survivors, and he is preparing to rebuild their world and eventually deal with the other races that the Cyclos have likewise conquered. The primary motivation of Turl's actions in the film is the decision to keep him there for another 50 cycles with endless options for renewal. As a very prideful individual, this was a severe blow to him, as he had simply hoped to be moved on to a better position once his time as interim security chief had been fulfilled. This caused him to make the foolish decision of attempting to use the man-animals for his own purposes, and ultimately leads to the downfall of the Cyclo plan. Had he simply continued in his job, mediocre though it may have been, he would have probably managed to achieve his freedom eventually, but because he was so prideful and arrogant and did not consider the consequences of his actions, he doomed them all. Johnny Goodbye Tyler is not your typical man-animal. He's from a tribe that is living relatively out in the wastes. Due to the interactions of the Cyclos' breath gas with radiation, humans tend to live in areas that are a bit more radioactive than normal, so that the Cyclos won't come to attack them, living relatively primitive lives. Johnny seeks something more, and when he heads out to find this, he is ultimately captured by a Cyclo patrol and taken before Turl, who is surprised at his inventiveness and actions when he accidentally shoots the Cyclo guard, and decides he will be the perfect subject for his experiment, failing to take into account that Johnny's determination and strength will likewise be an issue when it comes to the actual results of Turl's training. Because of the relative simplicity by which they had conquered the world, and had conquered many previously, by the use of their gas drones, the Cyclos tend to regard themselves as the superior race in the universe, failing to consider the true consequences of their actions, and the fact that humans had been a dominant species on planet long before it had been conquered for many thousands of years. After subjecting him to a Cyclo learning machine to first learn the language, Johnny continues to learn, ultimately developing a lot of skills and information that had been lost to humanity, like mathematics and engineering, as well as a great deal of knowledge that the Cyclos themselves had no longer found any use for, given their relatively simple method of sending gas drones, conquer planets, mine all the gold. As a consequence, he is thus even more determined to be able to use these skills to ultimately defeat the Cyclos. Turl further cements this determination when he takes him to a library, and allows him to read anything he wants, explaining that all of their technology had only allowed Earth to hold out for 9 minutes. Therefore, they are ultimately inferior, and anything that Johnny might plan will be ultimately doomed to failure. Turl considers this the ultimate way of saying, "You're nothing and I will always own you," whereas Johnny sees this as an opportunity to prove that humanity is worth saving, and that Cyclos, or anyone else, cannot conquer the planet and expect to get away with it. All these things that are from the past shall be proved to be the tools to secure a future. By tricking the Cyclos into believing he's mining for gold, when in fact he is going to Fort Knox, Johnny is able to secure enough time to be able to access an old army base and learn, among other things, how to fly the planes secured there, as well as other information on how nuclear devices work, as part of his ultimate plans to defeat the Cyclos. As Turl had not considered that they could be capable of innovation and thought, this proves to be the downfall, as I've said, while Johnny is able to rally the people together using the old technologies and information of Earth to secure the fact that they will ultimately be able to overthrow their oppressors and prove that such actions were not in vain. Turl's primary motivation, apart from his ego, was greed. When he learns that there is a great deal of gold to be found, not even questioning the possibility that it may have been a trick due to the fact that it was presented to him already processed and formed into ingots, he therefore decides to prepare to teleport it all to a secret place on Cyclo, thus allowing Johnny the opportunity to stage an attack on the city to break the dome, and to ultimately transport a nuclear device to Cyclo to trigger the reaction with the atmosphere and destroy the entire planet. Because Turl had been concerned only about himself and his own immediate needs and greed, he had inadvertently provided the means of actually proceeding to destroy his own home world, rendering moot all that they had accomplished, and making his own actions inherently pointless. All because of his own desires. By their nature, Cyclos are very businesslike, and, as also by their nature, quite treacherous. A fondness of Turl was to use the word leverage. He had attempted, for example, to find a method of leverage over Johnny by discovering his favorite food, which turned out to be rat due to a misunderstanding, and therefore proceeded to continue to reward him in certain ways to ensure he would continue to serve his ends. At the end, his assistant Kern, who had turned to the human side revealing that it was either that or be killed, reminds Turl that his own actions were a result of what happened, and as he's being held captive in Fort Knox, with all the gold he could ever want but completely unable to use it, Turl's reminded that this is leverage against him. Should the Cyclos discover the reason for their home planet's destruction and those who had accomplished it, Turl will be the bargaining chip to ensure that humanity survives. Ultimately, this film is about personal greed. Turl's decision to act this way for his own benefit, Kern's decision to attempt to betray Turl only to be outdone by the superior-minded Cyclo, and ultimately turn to the humans to benefit himself, and save his own skin, Johnny's actions to prove that humans are more than just animals, providing for the greater good of all, in allowing mankind to drive off the Cyclos and begin to rebuild their world, is the opposite of greed, proving that he's capable of acting in more than just a personal manner. And the ultimate fate of the planet Cyclo, destroyed by the nuclear explosion, shows that for all of their supposed technology, the Cyclos' greed and desire for land, property, and gold ultimately doom their species. I'm Professor Alastair Sinclair Smythe. Good afternoon.